Hello and welcome to People with Paul. This is the first in what we hope to be many editions of me, Paul Draycott, our Chief People Officer at Combined, talking to our people. And we thought no better way of starting the process of People with Paul than talking about our new Combined people, our new people plan. It's all about our people. It's all about you. We went out over the course of the beginning of the year and spoke to well over 200 people and got your views on what was important to you, what we need to take forward, linking that with evidence, linking that with what we know works across organisations. We've come up with our new people plan, which we're delighted to, and we're going to talk a bit about the content of that with a couple of guests in a minute, which I'll introduce you to. And in the future, we'll want to talk to many of you about not just the people plan, but what it's like working in Combined. We'll come to that towards the end of the session. So, the first thing that I wanted to pick up really is our purpose. And in our people plan, we talk about our purpose, and this is the purpose of the organisation, to be outstanding in all that we do and how we do it. And I think that bit about how is incredibly important. You know, we can have all the best plans and deliver them in the way that we want to, but if we get the how wrong, you know, that's the bit that is not good for people. Doing this well, doing this with civility, doing this with kindness, respect, compassion is really important. So we want to get that right, and that's what the people plan intends to do. Our plan is about further developing a diverse, engaged workforce, outstanding in all that we do. So that's what we're going to try and achieve, and we've got a few areas that we're going to look at over the course of the next 20-30 minutes or so. What we're going to do in terms of measuring our success, these are things that we've put overall measures. These are things that we aspire to do over the next 5 years. Get our vacancy level down to below 5%. We're running a lot higher than that at the moment, more than twice that at the moment. But we think it's really important to make this a great place to work so that we enable you, our staff now, to have a great time, but also it will encourage others to come and work and stay with us. Having a turnover less than 8%, another great measure of how well we're doing as an employer. But also having a workforce that is representative of communities at every level. We want to be representative of communities, we're not at the moment, and we want to do that at every level across our agenda for change and medical and dental banding. Really important that reflect and have those opportunities for everyone to develop and to grow and to fulfil their potential. Sickness absence rate of less than 4%. And that's about well-being. That's not about us implementing a policy, and I'm sure that may come up in conversation later on. But it's about having an approach that enables you to be the best and the most resilient and the healthiest you that you can possibly be within our workplace. So it's a good measure of how well we're doing in terms of health and well-being. And the last one, we want to retain our National Staff Survey results, being one of the top 3 trusts nationally across England in the NHS and beyond. And one of the best employers in the UK. And we want to do that. We want to try and start to measure against other organisations out there, not just in terms of the NHS, but what are the top employers doing across the country, and how can we bring those practices into Combined so that you can benefit and you can do the best that you can do then for patients, because you feel we're supporting you the best we possibly can. So what do we want to be? Those are the 5 areas that we've identified in the people plan based on your feedback: being inclusive and representative, having a great place to work, focusing on health and well-being, allowing people to achieve potential and aspirations, and having outstanding systems and processes that enable our people rather than get in the way of our people. So now I'm going to move to a conversation with a couple of special guests where we're going to unpack this in a bit more detail. Hi, and welcome back. And we've got our first discussion with People with Paul. And I'm delighted for our first discussion to be joined by Steve Jones, who is a healthcare support worker at Somers View, but also an incredibly active Unison member, been active for years in the trust. And also has a national profile with Unison. I'm really delighted and proud of the profile that Steve has across the country in Unison and helping to influence policy and supporting our people. I'm also delighted to be joined by Kerry Smith, who is our Deputy Chief People Officer for the Trust, and both of these people have been, centrally involved in developing the plan. So it'd be good to have these people here for our first People with Paul to discuss our new people plan. So thank you both for joining. So we've got there the wheel. You've seen that before many times as we've developed the plan. And I suppose the first question I want to ask is, what do you think are going to be the key aspects of delivering this people plan across combined over the next 5 years? We've got a lot to do, building on great work. But what do you think are the key things that we're going to be looking to do?
Well, I think the key aspect is getting people involved at all levels. Not keeping it in a boardroom away from people that it affects at the bottom. So I think it's getting buy-in from all staff, and I think that'll be the hard work. I think once we've done that, the plan will be seen as a fairly good and useful thing for us to be doing. So it's about getting the comms out and doing things like this and getting people to understand that that's the general direction that we want to go in, and they can influence that direction if they get involved.
No, that's a great point, Stephen. And we did do, over 200 people contributed, didn't they, to the development of it. But yeah, getting them involved, I think, is vital, as you say. This can't be sat on a desk or on a shelf somewhere. So how do we think we can best do that? What are the sorts of things that we can do? What do we do now? What do we do well now that gets people involved, and how do we build on that? I guess is.
I think we've got the roadshow events that have been going on, and we have various other events, and we work in partnership with the trust as Unison. Recently we've worked on the green agenda, and we also worked planting the Workers' Memorial tree on the Harpland site. So I think any aspect like that, we should be bringing the plan in. We should perhaps be bringing it in on our recruitment stalls and discussing aspects of it on our recruitment stalls, and then feeding back the information. So I think it's a joint effort between everybody. Perhaps team leaders need to be looking at having it as an agenda item on team meetings, or aspects of it on every team meeting. I think there's a few different ways of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Kerry, you got to...
Yeah, I think through the engagement that we've undertaken to develop the people plan, there's hopefully something in here for everybody. I think, we've all been on a significant journey over the last 3 years responding to COVID, and we know the pressures have been astronomical. Our staff survey results are really good. They provide some really great foundations, but we still know there's much work that we need to do. And I think whilst we've been in that reactive mode over the last 3 years, we can use some of that learning. There's lots of feedback that we've been able to listen to staff in terms of what's going well, what's not going so well. And I think this plan provides us with an opportunity to touch all our people so that this is a great place, an outstanding place to work. We know that health and well-being is a real challenge for our staff as life pressures land, financial austerity hits, etc. And that's provided a really challenging climate for our staff to work in. But what can we do locally to support our staff, whether it's with their own health and well-being? There's much more that we want to do to get upstream and be proactive and supporting staff to be as resilient as we can and supportive in our leadership style for staff that are having those difficulties. But that full life cycle really, so that when people join us, they get a great experience as part of their onboarding as we support them through their careers, whether it's talent management, development, CPD, the experience they get when they come into work, that joy to work piece is real for everybody. And I think we're really honest in this organisation that we're not exactly where we want to be, across all of these areas. And this plan, we very much hope, will help us to take there. So it is really meaningful for staff, Steve. So everybody can see something that's in it for them, and hopefully we'll be improving from where we are now to, over the next 5 years.
I think it has been, because I think with you've just touched on the sort of talent spotting and career development. I think it's taken a few years, but I feel now the trust has actually recognised what I was saying earlier on about people that don't actually want to progress. They just want to come to work and do a good job, and that's quite a hard thing, and it's a hard thing to deliver on. Letting somebody just do the job and focus on the job that they love doing, rather than going away and doing a course on this or doing a course on that. Now everybody's got the lifestyle or the time to do that because of the family commitments or whatever, and it's a big commitment to take on further education, and it can be quite daunting. You know, eventually we're looking as a union, we'll be bringing it to the trust at some point, looking at a way of doing some educational stuff with the Workers' Education Association that will get people ready to start a degree course or further education, you know, preparing people with English and maths and computer skills and those sort of things. That's all coming through the Unison College, which is a new initiative, so hopefully we can get some work done for that. Then if people do want to move on, that's fine, but if people don't recognising the good job that they do every day.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's great points there, and I think you're right that bit, Steve, about you know, recognising that there are a lot of people, you know, having the conversations, you know, as Kerry sort of alluded to, having the conversations about when we're pulling it together. The themes were really sort of quite consistent, but you know, and career development was one of those themes for a number of people. But as you say, you know, there's quite a few people that actually don't want that yet. It's not the right point in their career, not the point in their life where they want that, and that's all right too, isn't it? You know, we need to just help them to make the best of their working life and how that fits with their home life, and to bring that joy. And we'll talk about joy at work in a minute or two. But you know that this is about what works for everyone. It's about us making this the right environment for everyone, isn't it? And I love the idea. You know, working in partnership with Unison and you know the other trade unions, professional bodies is really important. You know, that partnership working, bringing the best of that difference, and you know what you do really well as in Unison. You have some brilliant initiatives and some brilliant courses that we can really, you know, connect and help our people to grow and fulfil their aspirations. I mean, the first part of that, it talks about inclusivity and representativeness, and I know we were hoping to have the chairs of our staff network here. We're going to get them on the next, hopefully next one or two episodes. So you know, there is plan to get Deb, Stephen and Sarah in to talk about the staff networks and how we can be more representative. But that inclusion, you know, it means different things to different people. I guess it just, I mean, we're worth just, I think, just having a quick conversation around. We know the NHS has a real drive to be more inclusive, but we're still way off in many aspects. And the Trust has done some brilliant stuff, and you can see that in our staff survey, and we're becoming more representative, but we still need to do more. I mean, are there any thoughts around how we might, you know, what sort of steps we need to take? We've got some great stuff in the plan, and we've got some great aspirations, but just thinking about what some of the things that we might need to take next steps around inclusivity.
I mean, I think first off, it's attracting people to come and work at the trust, isn't it? So I think perhaps some outreach stuff with schools might be the way to go. You know, showing that it isn't just a career for certain people, you know, and showing what careers and what different careers there are, you know, because what job suits me may not suit you or Kerry, you know, and may not suit somebody else. I think also what we miss, and I don't know how we engage, is the Roma community that we've got. You know, there's also now we're a big area for thankfully housing refugees, which I'm very supportive of, and we should perhaps be looking, you know, as the people there that could come into our workforce eventually, should we be making contact, you know, and bringing people in that way. And then obviously you've got the other equalities issues like the LGBT plus and stuff. It's about which the trust do attend Pride and stuff, so we have got those links. It's just how we show them up and get through. But I think the key to it is, I mean, you've only got a look at, sorry about this, Kerry, but you've only got to look at our ages. You know, we've got an ageing workforce. Yeah. We've certainly in nursing got a workforce where there's going to be a lot of people hitting retirement age at some point, and we've got to have new people to come in. No, completely. To do that
I'm
job.
Glad you chose Kerry to not me.
Slightly.
Yeah, I'm only about 10 years older than Kerry. But you're absolutely right, and I think working as a system as well. You know, we are doing a lot more work in schools and trying to track. But that bit about how we are seen as a popular employer by our local communities. You know, so that we've got people locally. You know, that the whole thing about how we play our role as an NHS, as a big employer within our communities is vital, isn't it? So yeah, I think
The perfect
That's absolutely right.
example of that is, I'll give you, not last week, the week before, my son come and did his work experience with the comms team, you know, and saw what it was like to work in an employer at 15 and in an organisation, and he's swaying some of his thoughts about what he wants to do, and is there more opportunities in the NHS than as well, or are they written off, you know? Even though me and his mum work in the NHS, it doesn't, you know, all he saw the NHS as nurses, because that's what the family of working that we do, and you know, so
and ignoring the fact that the comms team is recording this, was it a good experience for him? Did he enjoy it?
He had a really good week. He's been raving about it ever since. So
but it's supporting people with that opportunity, broader and wider, so it's not just our, you know, staff, isn't it? That opportunity's there for everybody locally, and I think that's how we'll then get a much more representative workforce of our local population. You know we're not as representative as we need to be across our whole of population, and we've done lots of great work, like you've said, but we still know experiences from our staff with protected characteristics, you know, whether that's disability, LGBT, or race, etc., you know, is not where we want to be. There is much more that we still need to do, and I think it's about that responsibility and allyship for us all to, you know, to be civil, to be respectful, to embody our values in everything that we do. Which will lead to the greatest gain, so that reputation we are seen as an employer. And I think we really sell ourselves short as an organisation. You know, we're quite a small NHS trust by our local partners and other trust standards, but actually as an organisation locally, we are a large employer, you know, and we need to really own some of that, and like you say, do that piece that we're going out to our colleges, because we know Stoke-on-Trent and North Staffordshire, you know, the population doesn't tend to move on. So this is our future supply and talent for us, and we've got to support those individuals into the many different roles that we've got.
And I think the beauty of the plan is we've got space for that. And going back to Steve's point right at the beginning of the conversation, you know, getting people from across our trust involved in this will be brilliant, because you know that's the sort of thing that will help this to energise. We want, like say, the allies as well as people from the different communities helping to push, you know, the fact that we are a good employer, help to challenge it when we get it wrong in terms of not being as inclusive as we want to be. And I think, again, picking up, you know, Steve's point about the Gypsy, Roma travelling communities, you know, again, it's an area that we can do better, both from a, you know, potential employment, but also certainly from a service delivery perspective. And I know we've got some brilliant people doing great stuff in the trust and across the NHS and that, but again, you know, it's helping to build those approaches really well and break down some of the attitudes, because you know, this is what we need to build our organisation on, isn't it? You know, we're not inclusive, people don't feel their difference is appreciated within our organisation. We're never going to have everyone being able to fulfil their potential, everyone being able to work at their best. You know, this is the sort of foundation stone that we need to build our organisation on, and I think we've made some great strides. We're in a great place, but it's how we get even better, isn't it?
And it's that link back, isn't it, to our service and what we deliver. You know, how can we deliver outstanding services if we don't understand the local population and what those needs are, and they don't see such individuals similar to them in our, you know, in our profile, in our workforce.
Yeah. I mean, we've next one on the circle is a great place to work, and we've sort of touched on that. I mean, is there anything you want to add? Because we've also got health and wellbeing, which you picked up, Kerry. But I mean, just and you know, what's the sort of things that make it combined already a great place to work, and you know, and I suppose what sort of things we've got in the plan that we will help us, and we'll come to joy at work in a second. But I mean, look, what makes us a great place to work at the moment? I mean, I've got some ideas, but you know.
I don't know, over 30 years, you know, service, you must be doing something right, you know, otherwise I wouldn't have stayed, you know, and that's top and bottom of it. I think a lot's changed. I think the flexibility, the choices about working hours, I think it was a fantastic move that the Trust made, that they didn't push everybody to do long days or nobody to do long days. That was another discussion that took many years of discussion between us to come to a sensible sort of agreement on. The working from home seems to be at a sensible level. There's obviously jobs you can't work from home at, and people have to accept that. I think now there isn't the battle over holidays and shifts and stuff. I was quite anti the electronic rostering when it first come in. It seems to work. There is areas I could pick up on sometimes, because the system doesn't know personalities, and sometimes it isn't great to have two people like me on a shift when you've got a service user who needs a different sort of person to talk to or to help them, you know, and you've got to accept that you can do what you can do, but if it's not right for that person, you know, it's not right for that person you need to do. But we shouldn't just nipping back really, we shouldn't let that be dictated by races or characteristics of the member of staff. You know, that should be dealt with properly. But I think, you know, so I think there's been a lot of things, you know. I think staff feel more respected now because of the long service awards and you know, Christmas and the gifts that have been given to people. You know, the extra day, the welfare days, goes down brilliantly all across the trust. Nobody's ever come and said, you know, well, I prefer this or that. So I think we are hitting the mark. I think the biggest thing that staff complain about that isn't a personal thing, if you want to group it, is perhaps uniforms. Sometimes, you know, in the summer it's really hot and sticky and you've got to wait to be given permission to wear something light, and perhaps we should be looking at a bit more, as long as it's suitable, you know, what the right clothes for the right job is. And, you know, certainly some female staff could do with being able to have access to all the uniforms at certain times in their lives, you know, and various things, you know. So I think that would make staff a bit happier sometimes. But I think generally, you know, most people, we don't get a lot of phone calls at people unless it's a personal problem, you know.
And that's great, isn't it? And again, coming back to your original comment about, you know, what's going to make this work, it is about getting our people involved, isn't it? Because what makes it a great place to work for me, you, Kerry, won't necessarily be the same for everyone, you know, working in our team, and that we're all different. And so actually helping people to articulate what will be great for them, as we have done, you know, and we've got some great plans in our combined people. But, you know, getting more of that engagement, telling us more and helping us to find ways that we make this the best possible experience for people to work in. I think, again, we need to make sure we create those opportunities, don't we?
I think the work we've done around the staff survey, you know, really deep diving into what that's telling us, you know, it's not, sadly, 100% of our staff don't fill it in, and we'd really strongly encourage staff to do that. We know the myths and the hesitations why staff don't, but we really do use that as our evidence base for areas that we need to support and to look at what opportunities. But I think supporting areas to have that autonomy, to take, you know, responsibility where they can for improving these aspects. You know, it doesn't all have to be sort of trust-wide driven, some of this. Some of it is about that local culture and how it feels and how we work with each other at a local level. But there are things that we need to do together. We know from our staff survey results, you know, violence and aggression from our service users is an absolute area that we need to focus on, you know, and I think that's a real focus that we're going to be taking forward, isn't it, over the next couple of years, to really try and support staff so that they're not in those very challenged positions.
I mean, the staff networks are brilliant, because I worked on them with the trust at the start of it, and we've sort of pulled back as Unison because we think, you know, it's probably better that it is an organisational thing, you know, rather than just our members. It's not, it doesn't just affect our members, it affects people that aren't a member of a trade union or are members of other trade unions. So I think that is better done by the staff with our support. So and that was pretty much a model that was taken from Unison's, we call them self-organised groups. So I think, you know, we do a lot with that, and a lot of information comes back from that, and a lot of where we move forward will come from there. So I think that was one of the best things put in place, was the Equalities Council and the staff networks. Yeah,
and I mean, you touch on another good point, Steve, which is around I think the learning from others, and, you know, we have tried to learn and include it in the people plan. I mean, one of the areas, Kerry, you might want to sort of pick up on, that we, you know, there's some brilliant evidence out there around civility and just restorative cultures, and which is, you know, learning from others, Mersey Care and others across the NHS, and, you know, that sort of that learning from Unison, or, you know, from the wider NHS or from private sector, I think is brilliant. And you want to touch on just restorative? I think that would be quite a useful thing to just flag because it's something that we're going to be launching soon, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we started our journey with just restorative culture, back before COVID-19 landed, as a direct result of a really tragic case with a trust and a member of staff that very sadly committed suicide because of the way that they'd been treated as part of a disciplinary investigation. Within our trust, we've always had quite robust, strong discussions with staff side and that challenge around some of these processes. So, but I think there's much more that we've still to do around this. So we know that allegations are made and there's a process that we have to go through. But just restorative is about making sure we only go through those processes when we absolutely need to, and when we do, all involved are treated with support, respect, timeliness, and not taking any action where we don't need to. If we know it's a system failure or anybody would have acted in that way, actually, is that really the right mechanism for support, to take somebody through a disciplinary process? No, we know how damaging they are and career limiting they are for individuals. So really making sure that any casework that goes through like that is only where absolutely essential and needs to, and that there's support for individuals through that process. So we started that journey before COVID-19 working with staff side colleagues, and actually there's been some outputs from COVID that have really helped this. Some of our digital ways of dealing with these mechanisms, actually staff have found more helpful and liberating and less intimidating. We recognise that even with the best will, these are still formal processes that staff need to go to, but I think it's spreading and being much more broader and wider. So there's still more that we need to do around the culture, around demystifying what just restorative means. It's not about holding people to account, but it's holding people to account in the right way, and not holding other people to account unnecessarily, but also thinking wider for our services. Everything we do should be about improving patient care and service user experience. So looking at our SIs, looking at our incidents, looking at our complaints and our approach to that. So it's a whole way of how we operate and how we treat our staff and our service users is respectful and based upon civility and mutual respect, and the values that we hold really deal in terms of being proud to care. So much more to do around this, but a much broader and wider culture piece for us all as an organisation. So there's less fear and anxiety around some of these processes.
So picking up on just restorative and systems and processes, the last one I wanted to touch on in terms of the people plan is our outstanding systems and processes, and this is really about the way that we build our systems and processes around our people and help them. I think we've improved over the years. Steve touched on rostering and some of the improvements that brings, but there's more that we can do, I'm sure, and I think we know, and we've got some plans to do more. But again, it'd be useful to get both the sorts of things that you'd like to see us do over the next 5 years in terms of improving our systems and processes from a people perspective.
I mean, the big one for us to work on is always going to be the sickness policy and building a more progressive sickness policy and how we deal with the advisory notices, warnings, or however we dress that up, it's still going to feel the same to the person that's going through that process. So I think in general all workplaces need to keep an eye on certainly that process, because it's very damaging. The work's going on, obviously, as Kerry's just said, through the disciplinary process. We've also got the performance management process in place that possibly needs looking at. I think policy and procedures is ongoing, and I think as we come across things, hopefully we learn. We might not get it right every time, first time, but hopefully we learn from that and make changes to make that better. And I think it's about us as trade unions, because we're involved in that heavily, about being reasonable and finding something that actually works. We've got to understand that we're not going to get everything we want, and you've also got to understand as a trust that we're not going to let you get everything that you want if we think it's damaging to somebody. So I think we've built up a relationship over the years with the trust and staff organisations and Unison, and I think as long as we can keep that progressive and keep it working in a healthy, unafraid, ready to challenge way from either side, I think we've got the best way of making policy right as a whole.
No, I think great point. And I think Kerry and I and the team, we've had some conversations around we agree. I think we need to make the sickness absence policy fit with the culture that we're looking for now. These things are never as easy as we want them to be, but we certainly want to move into that arena of it being not feeling as punitive as it does, and being more supportive, fitting in with the health and well-being. We don't want it to feel the way it is at the moment, and we've done that legally. These things that we've always wanted to put in the policy, but I think it's time to sort of move away a little bit from some of that legalese, to get into something that feels more progressive, as I say, more compassionate, kinder.
Like I say, I think the things that people point out that feels punitive, feels as though you're in trouble no matter, and you shouldn't feel as though you're in trouble if you've got a health issue. But the other aspect of it is that people say to us is it doesn't feel very personal. No, it doesn't meet my needs. It isn't personal to me. This isn't. It's a standard letter that comes out. So it feels less compassionate because. But I'm sure we will improve that as time goes on. Whether we'll actually get to the point of having a perfect one, I doubt, because other strains of thought and other ways of practice will come in the time we're developing. The policy that we end up with next, changes will be made. So I think it's just an ongoing piece of work, and it's about being ready to not say, well, we've done that policy and that's fixed now for 2 years. If something else comes on, being able to have that conversation of, yes, we've seen this now, is it time just to have a quick look at whether we can morph that policy again, not waiting for the 2 years almost as well.
Yeah, no, completely agree, Steve. I think we need to commit, over the next 12, 18 months that we will get that sorted. Kerry, have you, from out systems, processes, policies type perspective?
I mean, I think from a policy perspective, we don't want any of our policies to be damaging, do we? That's absolutely counterproductive and not, not what we're about at all. There are processes legally, as you've touched on, but it's about how we inject that just restorative and that stability, and make sure that we're getting proactive as we can. So we're not actually getting into some of these formal processes, and it's as much informally driven and supportive and reflective as possible. But I think other things that we need to think about is, we've got some great benefits within the NHS, and actually have staff, are they fully aware of what those benefits and those opportunities are? The pension scheme, the total reward statement. So something about how we can support staff to better understand what that total reward, that reward offer looks like, I think is something for us. I think from a service provision perspective, from a people team provision perspective, is looking at, digitalisation, accessibility, so that staff can access their information, on their phones easily, speedily, and it's up to date and it's right, whether it's the pay slips, whether it's the roster, etc., and looking at how we can inject that. And recruitment, again, we're just piloting actually some iBots to take on some of the activity that humans don't need to do, and actually our recruitment team are better served elsewhere, and really trying to avoid errors and speed up that process for our services, so that we're reducing the time it takes for us to recruit, and thinking where else we can scale and spread that across our other services as well. But I think it's just being much more interactive, having really accessible information so that staff know where they can get help, support from. We've got a great learning and development offer there as well, and a leadership offer as well for our managers, to support them to deal with what can be really challenging sets of circumstances at times, isn't it? We know, our staff experience some really challenging incidents in their day-to-day work, and actually what are we doing from our systems and processes so that we are wrapping around and it is accessible and holistic and feels person-centred, and putting that human side into our processes really as much as possible.
That's fab, thank you. So just to finish off, just wanted to pick up on the joy at work model, the happy, healthy, productive people come through joy at work, and this Institute of Healthcare Improvement model for joy at work that we've included in the people plan. And a big shout out to Sue Wood for great conversation we had around this, that sort of I think made the difference in terms of including it, because I think it's really good. But just in terms of joy at work, I mean, I think we're all sort of into the principle of joy at work, and there's some great, it fits in really well with what we're trying to do in the people plan. But I guess, just to end on a slightly lighter note, but I mean, just give us a sense of what brings you joy at work, and what would you like to see that would bring you a bit of joy at work. Keep it brief and keep it clean, because we've got a clean audience out here.
I think the thing that brings me joy at work is the team that I work with, the localised team, and I work with. I have to separate it out because I'm ward based. One shift a week, so I still work in the workforce on the shop floor. A lot of trade unionists don't, and but I think that's quite important personally for me, because I didn't become a trade union officer to get out of working as a healthcare support worker at Summers View. I really didn't do that, so I like to keep that aspect of my job. So I think it's the team and the people that are in it, and how they're managed. Really,
it makes a massive difference in people around you, doesn't it, Kerry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo those views, and making a difference, a positive difference. The services that I lead, we very rarely get to speak to service users, but actually we're still strongly committed as a leadership team that everything we should be doing should be about improving that service experience for our service users by staff being the best versions of themselves. And I've had some very interesting debates with leaders over the past who may not have always got how important this is, and the research and evidence that behind that when people are in these joy at work cultures and have got that psychological safety, the care that we give is so much better, their experience is better, the care we give is better, and it unlocks a whole discretionary effort, that we don't always see and we don't always feel.
I think COVID's done something to that bit.
Yeah.
I don't think, what I think COVID's done is enabled some managers to realise they don't need complete control at every moment of time, because it's been distance working, and they haven't been able to have that control, and they've found a way that was probably more balanced and more sensible, and makes a team happier by having that discovery. So I know we shouldn't try and find a positive out of COVID, because there isn't really a positive in COVID, but if the one thing work-wise, I think that has changed some managers' outlook that couldn't see another way of managing everything, but having complete hands-on all the time. Trust, really, and when you put trust in people, you get dividends back.
Yeah, and certainly from my perspective, the joy at work bit, I think it's multiple factors, isn't it? But the people, it is about the people, and it's about making a difference, isn't it? And feeling like you can make a difference. And I suppose one of the things that's I'm anticipating bring some joy at work, certainly to me and other colleagues. We're going to be announcing. In fact, Donna Cantrell is going to be announcing very shortly, which I won't spoil the surprise, but keep your eyes out for that, because that's going to be, very interesting, and hopefully bring a lot of joy and fun to work as well. But I don't want to spoil the surprise. Okay, thank you both. That's been an incredibly great start to People with Paul. Thank you for watching. We are going to be doing this on a regular basis. We'll be having different guests and different topics. We also want to come out to you and to see what it's like. Work, you bring your topics. We'll come out and we'll do a little video, or we'll highlight some of the things that you want us to highlight, and we want some fun things as well. So if any of you are up for singing in the ward and sharing your songs, or you want to tell jokes, whatever, the budding thespians out there, you get in touch and we'll include you in some of these as well. So thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and keep your ideas coming in for us so that we can improve it as we go forward. Thank you.